good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm very grateful for this opportunity and to the Digital Orientalist for organizing this fascinating conference. I am a loyal reader for all the posts, and I've learned a lot. So it is really my greatest honor to share our this new but modest contribution to this field. And I very much welcome any feedback for this work. Today, my talk is titled From Information to Metaphor, Tracking Photographic Editing in Chinese Wartime Magazines Through Digital Historical Forensics. So some of you may have heard one of my previous work on methodology itself, and we published it in the ACM Journal on Computing and Cultural Heritages. So today I'm going to present the Humanities insights, mostly from an article that's forthcoming, hopefully in 2 weeks, in the Journal of Chinese Cinemas. So I'm very excited to share how I applied a new digital methodology to examine photo editing practices in the Jinchaji Pictorial, a Chinese wartime magazine. So in today's presentation, I will introduce the concept of digital historical forensics, or DHF, as an innovative approach combining traditional media analysis with computer vision. And show how it uncovers hidden editorial interventions in historical images. We'll walk through some case studies and to see how simple photographs were transformed from straightforward records into powerful propaganda metaphors. So considering the challenge historians face, propaganda magazines contain thousands of photographs published across years or decades. Each image might be cropped, retouched, or recaptioned in specific ways, subtle editorial decisions that shape meaning. So how can we possibly trace these changes across an entire corpus? Let's ground this in our case study. So during the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Chinese Communist Party published a socialist propaganda magazine in their base area. So one of the prominent example was the Jinchaji Pictorial, founded in 1942 in the Jinchaji border area. Its collection is currently housed at the Harvard Yanjing Library. And these magazines were filled with wartime photographs of soldiers, peasants, and daily life in the communist-led area, intended as propaganda to boost morale, shape public perception, and reflect socialist ideals. However, editorial decisions were rarely documented. We don't have editors' notes explaining why a photo was cropped or retouched. And also, because of paper shortages and film shortages, editors often reused photographs from issue to issue or across sister publications. Moreover, the scale is also daunting. Thousands of images scattered across issues and even across different magazines. Traditional art historical or media analysis, which relies on close reading of a manageable number of images, struggles to cope with this vast visual archive. And therefore, how can we systematically trace what was done to these photographs and how they circulated, especially when we lack written records? So this is the problem that motivates the digital historical forensics approach. So when tackling these magazines, we have two ways, very different approaches at our disposal. So traditional media studies or visual historical analysis involves carefully examining each photograph in context. So looking at what it depicts, reading its caption or accompanying article, and understanding the historical background. And this can yield deep insight, but it's labor intensive and doesn't scale well due to the limited capacity of human visual memory. So one researcher can only manually analyze only a fraction of the thousands of images. On the other hand, computational methods, especially computer vision, can rapidly scan and compare images across a huge collection. For example, algorithms can detect if the same photo appears in multiple places or if two images are visually similar. So this pattern recognition at scale is powerful, but algorithms by themselves don't explain the meaning or intent behind image edits. So they still need human interpretation. So there is a gap. Neither approach alone is sufficient to unravel the full story of editorial decisions in these wartime pictorials. So this is where digital historical forensics comes in. It's conceived as a bridge, leveraging the strength of both traditional analysis and computational tools to uncover how images were used and manipulated in ways we couldn't see before. So our solution is this innovative method we term digital historical forensics, or DHF. So this is a method that integrates traditional media research with computer vision techniques. So in essence, DHF lets us forensically examine a large collection of historical images to figure out what editorial decisions were made. We use algorithms to do what a human alone could hardly manage, automatically match and compare photographs across hundreds of magazine pages. So by doing so, we can trace each image's life cycle, where it first appeared, how it was cropped or edited in later appearances, what captions or text accompanied it, and so on. So this gap between old school archival work and new digital tools. DHF doesn't replace traditional analysis, it augments it. It allows us to find patterns and connections that wouldn't be obvious from reading one issue at one time. Essentially, we are bringing detectives' toolkit to digital archives. So using technology to uncover the hidden fingerprints of editorial intervention on historical photographs. So let's demystify the technical side of DHF. The process starts with digitized pages of wartime magazines. So using computer vision and specifically a YOLO V7 object detection model, this system can automatically locate and crop out each photograph from the magazine scans. This gives us a data set of individual printed images. And next comes image matching. So my research team trained machine learning models to recognize the same image across different contexts. We created an ensemble of 3 machine learning models to compare a large collection of original wartime photographs with the magazine's printed photos. Essentially, the computer looks for visual similarities to tell if a photo in the magazine corresponds to an original negative or if it reappears in another issue. The use of an ensemble helped to improve robustness because printed images are often lower quality or altered. With this pipeline, DHF operates at scale, scanning thousands of images, and the results were impressive. The system reached about 77.8% accuracy at retrieving the correct match within the top 15 results. So in practical terms, that means that the computer could successfully link many published photographs to their originals or other occurrences. This enabled the discovery of numerous instances where images were reused or shared across publications. And this is a task that would have been like finding needles in a haystack manually. So these computational findings can then set the stage for deeper historical analysis of how and why those images were edited or circulated. And this mapping of each photo's journey is crucial because it visualizes the hidden network of image dissemination and transformation that would otherwise remain unseen. So through this pipeline, DHF, or Digital Historical Forensics, reconstructs the magazine's editorial strategies step by step. Now let's look at what we found. So cropping was one of the most frequent editorial actions. For example, this image captures captives descending a ladder from a fort under the watchful gaze of 4 communist soldiers. However, in the final published version, the soldiers are reduced to mere busts and their guns notably absent. The accompanying caption is written, "We do not kill prisoners, even when we conquer enemy forts. We do not kill them as long as they lay down their arms, but only those who committed the most heinous crimes are severely punished." This caption further emphasizes the lenient handling of prisoners, and it underscores the necessity of maintaining a clear, decipherable visual register, preferably devoid of ambiguous expressions that might distort the intended message or inadvertently transmit a different one. So in short, cropping removed the distracting context and directed the viewer's gaze exactly where the propagandists wanted. And this subtle edit significantly amplified the image editorial, the image ideological impact compared to its uncropped original. Our second case study highlights the power of captioning. Even without altering a single pixel, editors could radically change a photograph's message by simply changing the text that accompanies it. For example, a scene depicting Muslim individuals in a mosque in Ding County, Jizhong region. And this photograph was published in the 7th issue of Jinchaji Pictorial in 1944, yet repurposed and recaptioned in the 1946 Jinchaji Pictorial Series 3. And the variance in the captions is striking. The initial publication aligns the image with a political pledge, whereas the later version refers the same scene as a religious activity. Given that the photographic subjects are shown from the back, the actual nature of the scene remains ambiguous. And in this instance, the photograph of Muslim individuals in a mosque that doesn't undergo physical alteration in terms of visual content manipulation. Instead, the misinformation stems from the shifting narrative purposes imposed by differing captions. And the key point here is that the text steers the audience understanding. This recaptioning effectively repurposed the image for a new political context. It shows how malleable photographic meaning can be in propaganda. And this can be particularly powerful and insidious because it exploits the viewer's trust in textual aid as explanatory tools accompanying visual information. And we find that this strategy of textual reinforcement using captions where titles to predetermine an image interpretation was pervasive, and it was crucial to ensure textual authority over visual interpretation, even like embedded in existing photographs. So in other words, the editors didn't leave anything to chance. The caption or the textual aids embedded in photographs would effectively speak for the image, guiding viewers to the correct conclusion. But not all interventions were as simple as cropping or recaptioning. In some cases, the magazine engaged in darkroom alterations and retouching. For instance, Xu Shaohua's Militia Burying Mines, a widely published photograph, demonstrates another aspect of post-production alteration in its rendition on the cover of the Jinchazi Pictorial Series 4. There is a clear manipulation. Soldiers who were marching in the distance disappeared at the head of the militia in the original image, creating a discontinuity in the visual narrative of a never-ending march. In an attempt to maintain the aesthetics of continuity, the editor adds a hand-drawn column of marching soldiers in post-production. Despite this minor retouching alteration, this manipulation demonstrates how photographs can be subtly adjusted to better align with prevailing aesthetic and ideological norms. And these darkroom tricks and graphic annotations went beyond mere aesthetics. They were deliberate attempts to amplify the ideological message. Such doctored images blur the line between document and artifice, ensuring that the visual content is fully in service of propaganda. Now let's bring it all together with a signature example uncovered through digital historical forensics. So another photograph of local peasant Liu Hanxing's enlistment in the army, and our model found 4 matches, indicating that the photograph was published at least 4 times. So DHF allows us to discover that originally that photograph was published as a straightforward news image. And like in the smaller captions here, it was written with the date, location, Liu's name, and an emphasis on his familial relationships and the joy of sending the strongest man in the family to the war, to the battlefield. Over time, familial ties yield to broader political activities, with individual details gradually disappear and receding into the background, and abstract meanings communicated through text, supplanting them to forge a unified narrative. By tracking this single image journey, we see an entire magazine's overall evolution. It literally goes from information to metaphor. Early on, the photo was used to inform readers of what everyday life looked like. But later, the same visual is deployed as a metaphorical proof of socialist virtue and sacrifice. And this example demonstrates the power of digital historical forensics. This computational analysis spotted that the march the images is not unique, but an iteration of a prior photo, something easy to miss with the naked eyes. And we could then compare side by side how the editorial interventions changed its meaning. And the fact that one family's picture could serve first as news items, a news reportage, and then as an allegory for political propaganda is striking. It evidences how shifting political agendas influenced the magazine's editorial approach, turning neutral images into loaded symbols as the context required. So what do these findings tell us about the bigger picture, about art, politics, and the understanding of truth in socialist visual culture? Firstly, it illustrates the deliberate formation of a socialist realist aesthetic in photographs. Far from being neutral snapshots, these images were intentionally crafted to fit an ideological narrative. The classic socialist realistic principles, portraying optimistic, heroic scenes that model the ideal society, are clearly at work. Editors treated photographs more like illustrations, molding them to serve the story. And this means that the photos were presented as visual evidence of the virtues of socialism. But of course, that evidence was curated and sometimes manipulated. There is an inherent tension here between the documentary nature of photography and the propagandistic goals of the editors. On the one hand, a photograph suggests a direct capture of a straightforward capture of reality. So this is really happened and see the proof. But on the other hand, what we've uncovered is that behind the scenes, the interpretation was tightly controlled. By adding textual commentary and editing images, the magazine effectively preempted any alternate readings of a photo. Readers were not given a chance to draw their own conclusions. The meanings was handed to them, and this serves the purpose of propaganda, but it comes at a cost because it undermines the photograph's documentary autonomy. That is, the idea that a photo can speak for itself or objectively record reality. So in the 晋察冀 pictorial, a photo never stood alone. It was always anchored, cropped, or captioned to align with the political narrative. And it's a powerful reminder that when we as historians look at evidence from visual archives, we have to be aware of these layers of control and intent. So to conclude, this exploration of digital historical forensics invites us to rethink historical images as active agents in history rather than passive snapshots. The wartime photos in Chinese socialist magazines were far from neutral. They were edited, repurposed, recaptioned until they effectively became visual arguments or metaphors that supporting the revolutionary narrative. The computational mapping of image reuse literally reframes historical imagery as dynamic and contested, rather than static and settled. Through digital historical forensics, we uncovered those hidden edits and traced the pathways of image circulation, revealing an entire behind-the-scenes story of how propaganda is crafted. We saw how editorial choices, a crop here, a caption there, a reused photo later, collectively shaped what the public saw and believed. And the impact of digital historical forensics is twofold. Substantively, it sheds new light on wartime media history and the construction of visual propaganda. Methodologically, it charts a path for future research that bridges traditional archive and AI techniques. And this approach can be adapted to other historical contexts and other datasets where images or other media were widely reproduced and manipulated. So the key takeaway is the value of marrying rich context with computational scale. When we do that, we truly transform raw archival information into knowledge and even into metaphorical understanding. In other words, digital historical forensics helps us see the past not just as a collection of static data, but as a dynamic narrative that we can interrogate in new ways. And finally, as I mentioned, this presentation is based on a forthcoming article that will come out in the Journal of Chinese Cinemas in hopefully 2 weeks. So, but the DOI link is right here. And thank you very much for listening, and I welcome any questions about this work and its implications for digital humanities. Thank you.